we're gonna go ahead and get started. First, I'd like to thank everybody for taking time out of the day to join us in our public information meeting number 3. My name is Ethan Yoder. I'm a civil engineer for the city of Iowa City. With me, I also have Scott Sobers, the assistant city engineer, and John Durst is also with us today from the water department. Michael Farr and Aaron Moniza are contacts with both, and they're designing the project. And I'll kick it over to Michael to get started.
All right, thanks, Ethan. So yeah, as Ethan mentioned here, this is the kind of our third information meeting on the project, and we'll start off here just with some kind of a brief overview of what we, to kind of go through some of what we've already talked about, and then give an update on some of the right of way and then the project schedule and what's to come here. So project limits, as nothing's changed here. We're still, Court Street will be reconstructed between Muscatine and First Avenue there. Full roadway reconstruct, replacing all the pavement out there, roadway and sidewalk. And also with that, we'll be doing the underground storm and sanitary improvements, as well as water main. So this slide here just showing the improvements a little bit, at a little bit more of a zoomed in scale here, so you can get an idea basically of where the limits will be, where we're tying on with side roads, where the driveways will connect there, new sidewalks on both sides, and you can get an idea also of where the sidewalks will continue up to houses. Some go a little further than others just based on some of the grade differential out there. And the grading limit line that you can see there, which is the dashed black line, kind of give you an idea of where the limits of the grading will be in some of these locations. And as we've previously communicated, there will be some retaining walls out there for some of the properties that do have some really steep yards. And purpose of that is just to make things more maintainable for the residents here going forward. This is the typical section here for our improvements. Again, nothing has changed on this since we last met. We got the new road will be 25 feet back to back, or back of curb to back of curb. We'll have the 5-foot wide sidewalks on either side of the road. Storm sewer trunk line will be on the south. Water main will be brand new going in on the north side, and then the sanitary improvements we're doing. Currently, the sanitary sewer runs right down the middle of the road for the majority of the project. And you can also see the joint utility trench will be located on the south side. You can see it on the right side of the screen there. That will go the entire length of the project, and that's just to basically get everything that's currently out there that's overhead, get that relocated underground. So based on our last meeting, this was kind of what we looked at here for schedule. There have been some changes here, and I'll go into that in a little bit more detail a little further on here in the presentation. So I won't spend too much time on this, but the last information meeting we had has been a couple years ago. So really just looking to give everybody an update on where things are at, and kind of what's happened since we last met. So the construction was basically pushed back a year, and the main reason for this was impacts from other projects. The Rochester project there to the north is carried on a little bit longer than originally planned, and we can't have these two roads closed at the same time just for traffic concerns that are out there. And also with that, we were working with utility providers to basically relocate everything, and it's just that also has taken a little bit longer than we anticipated originally. As mentioned, so the joint utility trench there that will be going on the south side. So we're working with utility providers to get everything relocated. So this project will start. Um, we're anticipating, we'll start later this year. Um, and there will be, while this is going on, this will be kind of the first, the first thing you'll see happening. There will be some impacts to yards, the driveways out there, and where they're crossing, the roadways there to get this pushed through. So moving on here to the right-of-way process, and we'll kind of talk through here what you're going to expect to see here in the next few weeks. So you'll soon be contacted by the City of Iowa City's appraiser. Basically, that begins the right-of-way process. What you see on the screen here, and I'll go from left to right. So what you see on the left there, that colored exhibit. So that essentially, we pull that together. It shows the impacts to each property. What we will be, whether if there's landscaping out there that we need to, whether it's going to be removed and salvaged to the owner, or if there's any impacts to trees or certain items we need to protect. All that will be called out in there. And then moving on to the plats, which you'll see the 3 documents on the right. So there'll be an acquisition plat, permanent easement plat, and then a temporary easement plat. And not everybody will see all 3 of these. The acquisition plats we don't have much of that. It's primarily just some small triangular areas at intersections, and that is to get the new sidewalk in and make sure everything's ADA accessible. The permanent easements, those will be for the retaining walls and joint utility trench that will be happening out there. And then the temporary easements those are just for construction purposes only. So as I mentioned, the city's appraiser will contact all property owners. They'll explain the process and when the negotiations will begin. And we anticipate this typically takes about 6 months. For a project this size, it takes a little bit longer. And I just wanted to stress that the quicker we can get this done, the better. So it's, greatly appreciated, on behalf of the city, if this can, if when the appraiser gets out there, they get the documents, if each homeowner can do their best to review the documents. If there's any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to the city. They can answer any questions you have. And if they need to bring FOTH into that to discuss anything with the impacts, we can do that. But again, if we can kind of, make sure that those documents are reviewed and signed and returned as soon as possible, that just helps keep things going so that we don't have further delays to the project and construction on this job. So the final element that we wanted to talk about here today is really the project schedule. Since there's been some delays, wanted to just kind of run through where we're at today and what will be upcoming. So you can see here the public information meeting number 3. So obviously this is taking place here today. Right away, as I mentioned, we'll start shortly after this. You should be seeing the appraiser out there stopping by to bring the easement exhibits and then the plats to go through. So that, again, roughly 6 months, which then takes us into the construction plans and bidding. So that'll take place here later this year. Once we bid the project, then the private utility relocations can happen. So those are anticipated to start later this year, fall, winter, and then continue into the early part of next year. And at that point, we'll have the kind of our final public information meeting, or that number 4 that you see on there. And at that point, we'll have a contractor on board. we will have the contractor available at that meeting. Right now we're planning for that to be another virtual meeting just to discuss construction. That way, if there are any construction related questions that get brought up, we'll have the contractor on board to answer any of those questions. So, and the construction, it's still planned for 2 years, so that will start in 2025, continue through the construction season, and then also 2026. So looking at the staging of the project, just to give an idea of what will happen first here. So the first, in this first year of construction, this first phase will be it'll be 2 stages. Stage 1 will be from Muscatine Avenue to South 7th Avenue. And during this, Muscatine will remain open. We'll have to stage that accordingly. But then the remainder there of that segment will be closed to through traffic. Access to residents will be maintained as much as possible. And really the temporary access that you'll see out there during construction will be a granular surfacing. And then once the permanent pavement goes down, will probably be the time when there might be a short duration that, parking would potentially be on a side road there for a short period of time. And then stage 2 here is from the east side of South 7th up through Morningside Drive. So that'll be the first year. And then moving into the second year of construction here in 2026 will be from east of Morningside Drive up to roughly the midpoint of 3rd Avenue. And again, we'll be maintaining access to residents there. And then the stage 2 here of 2026 will be the remainder of the project from 3rd Avenue through South 1st Avenue. So at this point, I'll actually hand this off quick to John Durst. He's going to talk through some of what to expect here with the water improvements and what you might be hearing.
Great, thanks. I'll share my screen here and kind of talk through some things. So residents may have heard about the lead reduction program that the city kicked off in November. So as part of that program, we want to make sure as water main improvements are occurring here along Court Street that we're addressing any lead or lead contaminated service lines. So this is the city's lead parcel map. So you can see a dark red would be a structure that we know has a lead or lead contaminated service line. The blues typically indicate structures that were built after 1950, but before 1988. So there's a higher chance of leaded solder joints within the home, but the exterior service line is likely not lead or lead contaminated. And the yellow parcels that you see are lead service unknown. So they're typically an older parcel or older structure on that parcel. So we are uncertain whether or not that is lead or lead contaminated. So this portion of the project or the lead reduction program. Oh, got a bit of a echo there for a second. So you can see it's written out here, but essentially as we go through, a service line is the line that connects to the city's main. So all the blue area here is the privately owned service line. And the standard level of service will be to have the service line replaced up to and including this curb stop. But typically no work is done after the curb stop. We just reconnect to whatever the existing pipe was. But we want to make sure that while we're there, while the contractor's on site, if this downstream section towards the home is lead or lead contaminated, that we give residents the opportunity to replace that at a reduced cost. So this portion here will be covered entirely by the city and the project. This portion here, we hope to card the properties, which means we'll put a notice on the door and see if there's a time we can stop by to come by and look at the meter and see what the pipe is coming into the home, and then provide information on how we can partner with you to have the remainder of this line replaced during the project, which goes back here. So if the service after the curb stop is lead or lead contaminated, property owner will have the option to complete a full replacement at a reduced cost or receive a point of use filter with 6 months of filter cartridges from the city. So there would be a cost associated with that, but again, it would be a reduced cost. And we would probably set a ceiling to that, and we would give you all that information from the get-go, so nothing would change for you as we bid the project. So that is all I have on that. More to come. Like I said, we hope to do individual home visits as we progress through 2024 to get a good handle on what is and is not a concern for leaded or lead contaminated lines here on Court Street. I'm gonna take it back, Michael.
Yep. All right. Yeah, thanks, John, for jumping in and talking through that. So this is the link to the project website here. If you had a chance to join us at either of the previous meetings, this is basically where you can find any information on the project here. There's some frequently asked questions that are posted out there just to give an idea, on what to expect and some of the things that come up on projects like this. So as far as this meeting goes, it is recorded, so it will also be posted out there, in case you need to, go back for whatever reason and kind of revisit what we've gone through. And this link, or this link here, should also be on the letter you received for the meeting. So at this point, I think we can open it up to some Q&A. And I think that there were some questions that came through in the chat. But yeah, we can either start with those, or we can open this up to if there are any questions from anybody that's on the line here.
I do have a question. We live at 1624 East Court Street, and I don't know if this would be possible, but we were hoping to maybe widen our driveway a little. Is that something that could be considered?
So we can take a look at your property in particular. So as far as driveway widths go, based on city standards, there is a kind of a standard width for driveways out there. That's kind of what we've gone with when, as we're working through the project, is to get a standard width. So we can definitely look at that, and at least, see what the width is that we have shown in the plans, and see what the width of your current driveway is.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. I've seen in some cases, like our driveway is really close to our neighbor's driveway. There's just a little bit of space there. And I don't know if like putting the driveways together or something. Anyway, when it gets to that point, I will appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. We can look at that.
Hi, I've got a question from 1506 Muscatine. So for the lead pipe, the lead pipes from the road to the property, is that an option for the Muscatine houses as well? To have, to benefit from the reduced cost of replacing those lead pipes?
I don't know what the extents are there south on Muscatine from Court, but at this time, based on the graphics that were shown, I don't believe that parcel and your service line is within the construction project boundaries. You do still have the opportunity to use the city's lead reduction program and cost share if you want to be proactive on replacing a lead pipe though.
Okay, thank you.
Well, this is David Engelstead. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep, we got you.
Okay. I live at 303 Third Avenue, which is up the hill towards City High on Third Avenue. And are the water lines going to be going up that far, or are these just properties that are on Court Street itself that will need to be replacing the lead pipes?
It'll be majority on court itself. There may be some that are oddly configured when we get to cross streets, but for the most part, if you're addressed on Court Street, we will likely seek out an opportunity to meet with you and review what the materials look like in the home. And again, we're not requiring replacement, we're offering the opportunity for replacement. So homeowners always have the opportunity to decline.
Okay. I'm just a block away from Court Street, so that doesn't sound like it would include me for this part. So,
This is Linda. I have a question, please. Will this project extend beyond the intersection of First Avenue and Court, or does it end at that intersection?
So yeah, so it includes the intersection of Court and South First Avenue, but it doesn't really extend past that. We go north just a little bit to reconfigure some storm sewer, but for as far as going south and going east, it kind of ties into where the radius of the roadway connects.
Do you foresee going further east on Court in the years to come?
I guess I think I'd probably have to defer to Scott and Ethan on that one. I'm not sure if there are any projects in the works to take this any further east.
Yeah, that's a great question, Linda. As of right now, we do not have anything planned for Court Street east of First Avenue. There's nothing in our 5-year CIP for that section.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question about the intersection of Muscatine and Court. I live 1 block to the west of that intersection west. Will Muscatine, that intersection, be closed some of the time? So we'd have to drive back through the neighborhood to get back on Muscatine elsewhere?
So the intersection of Muscatine and Court, so the kind of that, it would be like the northwest and southeast where it's angled. We're keeping that through movement on Muscatine open. There'll be some traffic control to make sure that we can maintain traffic through there. But to the let's see, it's Grant Street there, which is just the
Right.
1 block to the
Yeah.
west there. That portion will be closed for basically when we're reconstructing the road there. There's some water main we're connecting on there, and just based on the traffic control and the temporary there'll be some temporary signals out there to configure those traffic going west of there on Court will be closed for a duration.
Okay, because that's where I live, right on that corner of Court and Grant. Okay.
Okay.
Hey, quick question, Jeff Hogan. I'm at 1302, the wee little house at the very end of Court. And my question is partially very general and there's some specifics as well. First off, with the general part, what is the degree of specificity we're going to be given with regards to, encroachment, for lack of a better word, that's going to be taking place onto our property? that you're going to be giving to all of us? And then number two is the specific part of my question. My house is that little small one with the lights, and it's a very short driveway and a very small front yard. I'm really concerned that it's going to have a dire impact on access and everything else. So two parts of the question, if I can repeat if you want, but go ahead.
Yep. So I'll try to answer the first part there. So the parcel impact exhibit that I showed there, that'll give you an idea of where the new sidewalk will connect to your property. Also the driveway, kind of the limits there. So that'll give you an idea of where that is going to extend. It'll have the aerial image on it so you can see how that relates to your house. And then the plats themselves, that'll give you, basically there'll be a distance that will be shown in there off your property line. So you can say, okay, this is 10 feet up, it's 10 feet from the right of way line onto my property. That's and I'm just throwing that out there for an example. That will be the encroachment that we'll need for construction related activities or for the, easement. So does that answer your question? And I think the last part was,
go ahead.
sorry. I was saying the last part I think was related to access during construction for you.
No. I'm just more concerned with permanent. Like I've got a real short driveway.
Yep.
So I guess what you're saying is that we'll be given during this acquisition process, we'll be given all the specifics we need, and we can negotiate at that time. I guess that's what you're saying.
Correct. Yeah, you can. Again, we can talk through any of this, and like I'd mentioned, we prefer if you have questions, please come to us and ask. So that way we can flush out anything, just so things don't drag on here.
Yeah, no problem. I'm very anxious to get it over with.
Yep.
Anyway, thanks.
Yeah.
I've got a couple email addresses from Aaron here. So Aaron, thanks, and I'll correspond that way. Thanks.
Yeah, and I guess one thing, there, like, Jeff, like you'd mentioned, so during construction, clearly it's impactful. We know that, we go through this all the time. So we understand there are going to be, impacts and inconveniences throughout, the duration of construction when it's in front of your property. So just wanted to mention that. I'm sure probably everyone's seen a construction project, but we're definitely going to do our best, to accommodate the best we can. But at the same time, we do have all of the underground that needs to get done. And the roadway portion.
Just to clarify, during construction, I'm all in. I don't care. I'm temporary access, even if it's 6 months. I'm just worried about losing my driveway overall, because it's not that long. And so I'll look for the meeting. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. And your driveway there, again, we're not taking anybody's driveways. They'll be going back, just be getting replaced, and you'll see some new concrete out there.
Thanks.
Yep.
One question for Court Street where there will be the retaining wall. Will the sidewalk and the retaining wall become the responsibility, like up maintenance of that be on the city or on the homeowner? Longer term.
So the sidewalk piece there, so that is, as far as the sidewalk and retaining wall go, Scott, would you and Ethan mind jumping in on that just to?
Yep, certainly. So we are, for the locations where we are putting in retaining walls or needing to install retaining walls, we are in fact getting easement for those. So that will be city responsibility to maintain those. The sidewalks are typically the property owner's responsibility to maintain.
So for the locations where there's the new sidewalk going into the retaining wall, like between Muscatine and Court, or Court, Muscatine and
south side.
7th on the south side, will the sidewalk go and connect straight to the retaining wall, or will there be like a grass space that needs to be mowed? I think we're worried about having to get down there and how we'll get down there from, just that higher level of the yard.
Yep, so the sidewalk will connect directly to the retaining wall, but there'll be an area between the curb and the sidewalk that will be grass.
Oh, Lord.
That makes
Okay,
sense.
thank you.
Yep.
So Mike and John, hey, this is Aaron. I've been the one kind of monitoring the chat, and if I could, there was a question here that was posed by Tyler, and I believe, Tyler, that your question is maybe for John from the city, kind of related to the lead pipes. But Tyler's question was, do we know what the reduced cost would be, or what the ceiling cost would be? And so, John, do you think you could maybe provide a reply there for Tyler on that? And Tyler, if Tyler, if that question was for something else, please feel free to elaborate.
It was just for the lead pipe that they were speaking about towards the foundation.
Yeah, so we don't have a good idea at the moment. We hope to get a better feel for what that might look like once we visit some of the homes. Because there could be a lot of variables there. We do plan to bid it as an each item. So it's not as though one house would have more costs than other house, because it'll just be, we expect to have this many additional service lines replaced from the curb stop into the home, and have the contractor bid that as each. And then we have our current lead reduction program cost share. So what we plan to do is just cover 50% of that, with the homeowner covering the other 50% of that. So again, I don't want to give numbers because I don't want to be held to those numbers, but I know numbers help. So, if we assume that, let's say, a full service line replacement from a water main all the way into the home would cost anywhere from 8 to 10,000, and already half of it or more, and the more expensive half out in the road, is going to be done by the city during the project. So then let's say you have 40% of the cost left, so you're down to 4,000, and then you cut that in half, so possibly a ceiling of 2,000. So that's kind of what we're looking at. But again, there's so many factors associated with it. We'll have a better feel. And like I said, we don't want somebody to agree to this at an expected cost, and then we bid it and it turns out to be a different cost, which is why we want to put a ceiling on it, so that there's no float there. It's given to you straight up from the beginning, so you know exactly what you're going to have and not have.
That's helpful. Just a follow up to that. Is this only applying to the homes that are directly facing Court Street, or will it impact any of the houses off of Court Street?
I'd have to review the plan sets again, but I think for the most part, we're not impacting any service lines that come off of the side streets. We are doing cross street water main work, but again, I don't think any of the services for the homes at those intersections will be impacted, but we'll make sure that anybody who is impacted is contacted by us, so that we can at least have the conversation with them about the replacing the remainder of the service line should it prove leaded or lead contaminated.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Mike, so we had a question here from Aaron. Could you maybe take a few minutes? And Aaron's question was, could you describe the acquisition process? So, Mike, would you just take a few minutes, maybe provide Aaron in the audience just a quick overview of just what that looks like for everyone?
Yep. So again, as I had mentioned there, the city will have they'll have an appraiser that will come out and they'll meet with every property owner there. They'll get an assessment of the property value that way. So for example, if there is if it's for somebody that is on the corner where we might have to have a small piece of right of way that's acquired to install the sidewalk. So there'll be a value that will be assessed for that. Same thing for the permanent utility easement. There'll be a value that's associated with that. And then also the temporary construction easement. There'll be separate values associated with each one of those because when obviously with an acquisition, those are a little more expensive because it's actually a piece of property that the city will be acquiring. So those are the three different scenarios. So that will be presented to the homeowner. You'll have a chance to review the documents. When I say documents, again, it's the parcel impact exhibit and then whatever easement that will be required or that will be asked of the homeowner. And at that point, you'll review those. The city might have some documentation that goes along with that just to kind of talk through the legal portion of it. And then at that point, you'll review it and basically sign that and return to the city. And that's when the city, once they have all of these done, then we'll be able to move into the final stage here, which will ultimately be the bidding the project and construction. And again, that's why I stressed, there is some involved with, getting out there, meeting with every property owner, and then obviously the property owners will review and have to sign this. So if there are items that come up, questions that come up, I can't stress enough just to try to let us know if there is any of that so we can talk through it and, doesn't delay the project here.
I want to ask about our tree. I have a question.
Yep.
Mike, I think we may have lost Mary on that one.
Okay.
So Mary, I think it was you that was about to ask a question. If you're having some audio, if you get them fixed, please ask your question. Otherwise, if you want to put it in the chat, and maybe while we're waiting for that, Mike, I did have another question that did come in the chat here from Madeline, and her question was, could you explain how we can interpret that quote unquote grading line? And is that where a retaining wall would be? Also, Mike, then Madeline then kind of had another question that's kind of related to that. So let me just throw that one out there. Maybe we can address these at the same time. And her second question was, could you speak to leveling out the sidewalk into the paths in our yards? Will the city be responsible for steps / leveling the new sidewalk into the existing path from the houses to the street? So, Mike, I think maybe we can ask Madeline to maybe let us know exactly where her property is, but I think maybe if you just explain kind of how there's some retaining walls out there, but not everywhere. And kind of how the grading line kind of aligns with where retaining walls are, that would be great.
Yep, for sure. So the first part of the question there with the retaining wall, so not every house out there has a retaining wall, and just just because there's a grading limit line that might extend back a little bit further doesn't necessarily mean there is a retaining wall. Those will show up on the parcel exhibit, so you'll be able to see kind of where the sidewalk gets a little bit wider and where the retaining wall will be located. And again, reason for the retaining wall is because there's a lot of yards out there that are very steep, and to make sure that we're bringing things up to current specifications, making sure that things are mowable and maintainable. That's the reason for the wall itself. Regarding the steps to houses, so the steps those will be part of the project. If there are steps that are out there today, there's a pretty good chance that you'll have them in the future. And with those steps, I know some of them currently have handrails, some of them don't. Based on the new codes, we'll also be putting handrails on the new steps that will be installed out there. And as far as the limit of the sidewalks, we'll replace the steps, and then really the kind of the extent will just be, we'll go just far enough to tie on to what is existing out there. Does that
Yes, that
does
answers my question. Thank you.
Okay, you bet. Yep.
I had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I live on the corner of Court and Fairview at 1402 East Court, and we had discussed the fact that you were going to take out quite a bit of our landscaping, and at last we knew you weren't going to take everything out, but you were still going to take out the tree on our corner. And I'm wondering, are you compensating for that, for replacement costs, or how is that all being handled if you're taking out established landscape, particularly, a healthy 20-year-old tree?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you for the question. I remember we met out there with you on site to take a look at that. So the tree that you're mentioning there on the corner, so that again, there will be I guess a short answer, there will be a value associated with any trees that have to come down during construction. And I can't tell you exactly what the value will be for that.
Right. No, I wouldn't expect to know that now,
but yeah, you'll be
how that's all
compensated
going to
for.
get handled.
Yep. Yeah, if there are trees, or I know there's some shrubs out there, that type of thing that we have to impact, the homeowner will be compensated accordingly for that.
Also, you had talked about widening that corner or the turn, and I'm concerned about that because that's just going to make it easier for people to turn faster onto a one-block street and cut into our yard even more. And I'm just wondering if you had, and there's no sidewalk on Fairview on our side of the street, so I'm just wondering if you had taken another look at that, because that's going to impact our neighbor who was just that lives across the street from us with his driveway and so on. His side yard isn't very big either. And if you widen that, it's just really gonna cut into both our properties.
So if I understand your question, yes. So the roadway where we're tying on
to Fairview Avenue.
To Fairview the width will stay the same, but the radius or the corner, I know, those do increase a little bit there. And
when you say a little bit, what does that mean?
So I guess without kind of showing you visually, so say if the radius out there, and not that this is probably going to mean a whole lot possibly to you, but say if the radius out there is 20 feet, or sorry, 10 feet, and we're going to 15 to accommodate the new design standards, that's essentially where that would go. So it might come back a few feet from where it is today, but based on what we've seen out there, when we go through a project like this, there's off tracking on a lot of corners, and if we don't bring things up to current specifications and install these how they should be built, then that type of thing will just continue to happen in the future as well.
Well, so are you doing that to all of those intersections? You're widening every so all those people that have yards that aren't very big and side yards that aren't very big, they're all going to get cut into as well on this project. Like I'm thinking going north in particular, when you look at going toward, you know, throughout the streets that are being impacted.
So again, not every street, you know, not every property, I guess I would say is impacted because we're making these radiuses slightly larger.
Well, every property that's on a corner would be impacted, right?
Correct. Within the city's right of way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep.
Well, it's just hard because I understand where you're coming from, that you need to be up the code and all of that, but it's a little tricky in my opinion. You're coming into an old established neighborhood and trying to modernize the streets when it doesn't necessarily fit what's there. And so, you know, taking that into consideration to me would be really important as you're doing these things. Does that make sense?
Yep. No, yeah, we understand what you're saying there. And that, you know, again, is part of the reason why these, you know, the road widths themselves, you know, we're trying to keep those minimal to, you know, help with, like you mentioned, with, you know, traffic speeds that, you know, that are along Court itself. You know, when we keep roads narrow like that, it helps to calm traffic a little bit. And so, you know, that's why we're trying to.
Yeah, I mean, it can, but I live on Court Street, so I know what the traffic's like. And it's already speeding too fast. And I'm just concerned about having wider radiuses on the turns is not going to slow it down. So that you don't have to address it anymore, but that's just a big concern with the, you know, kids going to school and all of that.
Yeah, I guess one other thing, this is Scott from the city that probably, and I can't remember if we mentioned it in the presentation, but Court Street is getting slightly narrower, so that needs to be factored into the intersection radius at each of the intersections. So while we are making those a little bit larger, you know, it's going to be somewhat offset a little bit by the fact that Court Street's going to be narrower as well.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry to monopolize the time. I just have one more quick thing that I assume you would address with us when you come to our house. But we have that steep hill on Fairview, and that's going to get impacted as you do that intersection, and not putting a retaining wall around the corner is going to really make it difficult for us to maintain the property area. So I'm hoping that's something that could be addressed when we talk more about the details of what's happening, since our property is one of the being impacted dramatically. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for the questions, Mary. And we can, again, if we need to, you know, talk through this a little more or take another look, we can definitely do that. Just let us know.
Okay. Yes, we would like that. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Hey, Mike, and John, I did have another question come through that I think is related to the lead pipes. This one is from Lucy, and Lucy's question was, will the lead reduction only be for houses on Court? We are across Grant Street from the end of the project, and will we be included or not?
Yeah, so the lead reduction program is available to every resident in Iowa City. This particular part of the lead reduction program is associated with public projects, just to kind of have that attack of opportunity while we're already opening up the street. In this case, Grant Street is not impacted directly by the project. The scope of the project, I believe, ends kind of right where that intersection of Court and Grant starts. So there is no expectation that we will be disturbing anybody's service line on Grant. Though again, if you have interest in partaking in the other aspects of the lead reduction program, that's still available to you.
I have one question I misunderstood or maybe misunderstood. Is Court Street, are you saying that it's the drivable part of Court Street is actually going to be less wide than it is now? What's the point of doing the whole project if the road is going to be less wide?
So the western portion of Court will go back as existing. I think it's right at that 25 feet back of curb to back of curb. Heading east, it does get a little bit narrower. And so we're going to keep that basically that roadway width of 25 feet back of curb to back of curb through the project. And as we mentioned that, keeping a road, to that more of that minimal width just helps to, provide a traffic calming out there. So it's, it helps with speeding and that type of thing. But everything it will be, per specification, and it's not like we're going outside of design standard to narrow things up.
Okay, thanks. That clarified.
Yep.
Hi, it's Madeline. I'm wondering if we can go to Jeff's comments in the chat. I'm also concerned about the things that he's bringing up here.
Certainly. Hey, Mike, this is Aaron. Yeah, thanks, Madeline. I was just about to get to that. Well, and let's just maybe address that live. So Mike, question from Jeff is, is it safe to assume that if the sidewalk is 5 feet wide and easement is another 6.5 feet from street, that you're going to go in 11.5 feet from the street curb? So that's kind of the first part of the question. In the second part is, may have missed, basically Jeff is wondering if an overall traffic study is being done. So maybe we could address those two questions.
So I think the first question was how far are we going in from the sidewalk? So the sidewalk separation so right now it's in certain spots there really isn't much between the back of curb and the edge of sidewalk. So the sidewalk does get pushed back a little bit. It'll so where the right of way is out there, it'll be roughly a foot off of the right of way through the project. That's kind of where the new sidewalk will go, with the exception of a couple blocks where the sidewalk on the north side's a little bit wider. But for the vast majority, the sidewalk will be installed 1 foot off of the city's or inside of the city's right of way.
Like, hey, this is Aaron, and maybe just to add to that is, maybe, or Jeff, to your question, so that 11.5 foot dimension that you mentioned in your question, that is accurate. So we've got a 5 foot sidewalk, and then we've got kind of a 6.5 foot green space there between the sidewalk and the back of the curb.
Okay, sorry, it's Madeline. I just want to confirm that. So you're saying that there's going to be 6.5 feet of grass between the road curb and the beginning of the 5 foot sidewalk before it butts another 5 feet? Where's the 1 foot that you just mentioned?
You'll have the roadway curb, then there'll be that 6.5 feet, and then of green space, grass, and then you'll have 5 foot wide sidewalk, and then on the back side of the sidewalk is where you'll have that 1 foot, and really the back side of the sidewalk will just go into your yard, so the back side of the sidewalk is be a foot off the right of way. Does that answer your question?
A little bit. I mean, I'm deeply concerned about that generally, but I guess what about if there's a retaining wall? Is that 1 foot then not there? Is the retaining wall instead of that 1 foot?
So yes, places where there will be so just based on on design standards where we have retaining walls, the sidewalk will be it essentially gets slightly wider there, and that's just it'll go up to the property line, and that's where the retaining wall will be. And as mentioned, that's some of the reasoning behind the easement there, just from a maintenance standpoint for the city.
Okay.
Okay, Michael, I walked out real quick to measure. Going from the curb where it is right now, I'm sorry, Jeff Hogan again on the corner of East Court and Muscatine. Going in 6 more, at 12 feet total, takes a full 6 feet from my very short driveway. So is that something I guess we're going to discuss when we have this assessment? I mean, that's just really significant. So at that corner, is it a foregone conclusion that I'm losing, that it's going to be 12 feet in from the curb where it is right now? If
You
there's
said so.
specifics on this, I can wait. I'm just, I mean, it sounds like a blanket rule that 6.5 feet of grass and then 5 feet of sidewalk, and that's going to take an additional 6 feet of my very short driveway. And again, if this is at this time, I'm being very, it's just my house right now, so I guess I can wait until for the assessment. But and any question or any answer to that might impact other people as well.
Yep, this is Scott Soares from the city. If I could jump in, Michael, real quick. So your driveway is going to go out to the street, which the street is essentially being narrowed just slightly. So your overall driveway length is going to be the same.
Yeah, but I can't park on a sidewalk.
Correct. That is correct.
So I'm losing 6 feet of my driveway then.
Well, technically, you're not permitted to park out in public right of way.
I know, and then the public rights is going another 6 feet onto my property. Okay, I no argument. I'm in big trouble, but yeah.
We can certainly, if it would be helpful, Jeff, we can certainly meet with you out at your home some point to take a look.
Yeah, fair enough. And I got your email, so I'm leaving town for February, but I'll certainly email you both. Thanks.
Thank you.
I guess it's Madeline. Sorry. The one part of that question that wasn't really answered was about the traffic study. Are there plans to be doing a traffic study while we're sort of digging up this entire part of the road? There's obviously been fatal accidents here and significant speeding and other traffic concerns. So I'm echoing Jeff here with the trimmed corners and the comment earlier too on Fairview, the cutting and how that's going to impact speeding. So is this an opportunity to do that traffic study as well and have that impact some of the signage or whatever that might be?
So as far as a traffic study goes, so we, as part of the process, we look at traffic counts, in this area. But as far as a full traffic study, I believe we've conducted that as part of the project here.
Is there room for that to be considered or some way that could be considered? I know some of these things that have happened since the beginning of this project. So I would hate for that to be missed as we're sort of redoing the entire street.
When are you referring to accidents or?
Yeah, I'm referring to fatal accidents related to speeding on Court Street.
Yeah, I think the hope is that with narrowing up the street, that's going to calm traffic, so people will drive not as fast. We, like Michael said, we're not anticipating doing any additional traffic studies out for this section of the project. I think the reason why is because we're not changing the number of lanes. We're not increasing the number of lanes. We're not decreasing the number of lanes. So traffic study really isn't going to get us all that much in this particular situation. And so the only time we do traffic studies is when we're, trying to, either add lanes or, or for, like we're, going from a 4-lane to a 3-lane conversion type project, or, if we're looking at an intersection where we're going to be adding turn lanes, then we would do a traffic study where we would do some modeling. But here, where we're essentially just putting back what is there and narrowing it to try to calm traffic to reduce the speeds, there would be a need for a traffic study.
Okay, thank you for explaining that.
Sure.
So Mike, at this point, there are no other questions here on the chat. As far as I can tell, I was just looking, I think we've addressed those.
Yeah, I was trying to look through that too, Aaron. I think we've covered everything that's in there. I'm not sure if there's anything else or any other questions out there from anybody that's on the call still.
Mike, we did get one more that came here through from Nancy. Again, her question is, so the current 1.5 foot grass strip on the south side of Court Street is going to increase to 6 feet. She just wants to make sure that she understands.
Yes, that is correct. That will increase to 6.5 out there along the project.
Hey, Mike, and maybe for the audience, maybe just one more thing. This was a question that was asked on the chat in case folks didn't see it, but and Mike kind of alluded to this in the presentation, but yeah, I think the question was wondering if the electrical and some of the communication utilities, are going to be buried. And so maybe just to make sure everybody understands that is going to be a component of this project. The plan is to get all the overhead utilities that you see out there in the corridor kind of buried underground. All right, yeah, so I think that covers the questions in the chat there, Mike.
Sounds good. Well, again, thanks everybody for joining here. Like we said, if there are questions that come up here after this, as you're kind of thinking through things, definitely reach out. I think Aaron had posted our emails out there, but this is where you can reach either Ethan at the city or myself. That's our direct line numbers, and then also our emails there. So yeah, please reach out with any questions you have. And again, the website there for the project is listed. It was sent in that mailer. So yeah, we try to keep that up to date as we're going, just with some information. So
hi there. I don't mean to delay the meeting, but I asked a question in the chat and Aaron responded, and I don't feel like maybe he understood my question. I really appreciate the response. In regards to the utilities going underground, for the utilities that come off of Court Street service onto the side streets, like say a light post that has an electrical connection that goes down the side street to provide service to those houses, will that then go underground as well? Or will there still be overhead lines across the side streets from the utility poles on Court Street?
So as far as the side roads go, so everything along Court east to west will go underground. If there are things, say if they cross, right now if the overhead's on the south side, and for example, say if it crosses there at College and heads north, if there's a pole there, what they would do in that scenario is from where that new joint trench is getting installed on the south side of the road, they would bore under, and it's likely they would connect to the nearest pole. So if there's a pole just on the north side of Court along a side road, they would go to that pole, and then more than likely they would run up that pole, and that's kind of where the undergrounding would end. And then everything going, whether it's north or south from Court, would still remain overhead. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you much.
Okay, you bet. All right. Well, if there isn't anything else, we can jump off the call here. And yeah, thanks again, everybody, for joining.